Things have been a bit hot on the political spectrum lately. I've been seeing a lot of reports of people burning flags. They're angry about a number of things. Some people really don't like this. I read a tweet that suggested if Trump becomes president, he will try to make it so that anyone burning the United States flag would go to jail for an entire year.
We ought to come up with legislation that if you burn the American flag, you go to jail for 1 year. 1 year.
First of all, as far as I understand, I actually don't think it's illegal to burn the United States flag in a sign of protest. I think it's extremely disrespectful on a personal level. I think that throwing it on the ground, stomping on it, burning it out of disrespect is extremely disgraceful. I think there's many other ways to protest if you want to protest, but doing that is not good.
How do you feel about people burning a flag from another country here? Same thing? Should not burn the other country's flag?
Personally, I'm a little more mild-mannered though, so I feel like I don't think, you shouldn't burn ours. Probably don't burn theirs.
What about other countries burning the United States flag in their country?
I would say that's disrespectful too. Yeah, just anyone. Okay. Yeah, it's just a disrespectful thing to do. When you have the symbol, the flag is the symbol for your country, one of them, and if you're burning it, it is meant to be a sign of disrespect. I mean, the people that were burning the flag were saying like F America and all this stuff that I've seen, right? So it just kind of goes with the whole thing of proving how upset you are that you hate this place so much that you want to just burn the idea of it, right? So that's the whole thing there. There is a respectful way. I believe the correct way to retire a flag is to burn it respectfully. I think if you take it to the police station or fire station, they will actually provide that service for you. I know that's not what we're talking about, but there is a respectful way to actually retire a flag, and it does include burning, from what I understand. As far as Trump making people go to jail, I don't think you should go to jail for burning the flag. Right. I also don't think Trump is going to make people go to jail for burning the flag if he becomes president again. Part of freedom of speech is having the ability to do that, but part of freedom of speech is facing consequences for how people may react to you doing that. So if you burn a flag and say there's a veteran there that fought and lost his brothers beside him fighting for that flag, maybe don't be surprised if you get punched in the face. On the other hand, you should still have the right to do it, but you're also kind of a piece of shit if you do.
When I think about this, from a business standpoint, in our business, we run into problems sometimes on a daily basis, and problems are just a very normal part of running a business. Some of those problems aren't what some people might think of as problems. Sometimes they're opportunities. And I don't mean that in some sort of esoteric, philosophical way. I mean, they're actual opportunities. Sometimes there's a problem that we encounter that every other business like ours encounters. And by solving it, it really gives us an edge up in the industry. Whenever I encounter a problem, there's two things I think about right away. One is this an issue that is going to be recurring, right? Or is this a one-off issue? And is this something that is of high importance? So sometimes you might have a recurring problem that is of very low importance, it is of low consequence. If it's something that's a one-off issue, but a very big issue, and it's not likely to present itself again, once again, we just deal with that issue by itself. But there are times when we have some issue that presents itself, and it's something that keeps happening over and over again. And so I'm less concerned about that one instance of the issue, and I'm more concerned about solving the underlying reason that issue keeps surfacing. Because by solving the underlying issue, we solve all these like symptoms. And so when I think of this flag burning or any number of things that people do to act out, maybe graffiti or whatever, the first thing is, does it hurt anybody? And I don't see anybody, just from the flag burning itself, nobody's getting hurt and it's not causing any problems for anyone, other than maybe some people get offended. But it is a great indicator that there's an underlying issue. And if you only had a flag burning, say, once every few years by one person, it's probably not something that the state or the country in general needs to devote a lot of energy or resources to trying to solve, because it's so rare. But when it starts happening more and more and more and more, at some point you have to realize there's an underlying issue that's leading to this. And of course, then the question is, what is that underlying issue? And I'm sure there's a lot of opinions on that. It could be that the media is working to really, gaslight people into being against each other or even being against the U.S., which I actually would say we all know that happens.
Sure.
And it is very unfortunate that there's so many people that are losing any sort of sense of patriotism or camaraderie in their country, because if we all had that a bit more, I mean, that would be terrific, right? It's a great feeling to feel like you have something in common with your fellow country people, as opposed to, just always being at each other's throats and being against each other and being against your own country. And I see so many people online having these sometimes crazy opinions on what the punishment should be for people who do this, as opposed to saying, why do they even want to do it in the first place? Like, why is this even surfacing or becoming an issue? Because there's no objective reason why normal people should grow up and be like, what would be fun to do today? Just like burn some flags, especially the United States flag. Would just love to burn it, right? That's something you do when you're kind of pissed off. Maybe you got worked up into a frenzy, or, you have a reason. Might even be a good reason. And so to me, if this is happening a lot, then we need to look at that underlying issue and try to solve that. Because if all you do is punish people for burning the flag, it doesn't get rid of that underlying anger, which will, one of two things. If you say, hey, we're going to send people to a jail for a year for burning the flag, then you either have a bunch of people now in jail, or you have a bunch of people that, okay, they don't burn the flag, but then they go and they do something else. And so it's like a game of whack-a-mole. Okay, so we stopped that, but now we have that issue, as opposed to solving the actual reason why they're angry in the first place.
One thing I have noticed, to your point of the media trying to stir folks up, is, at least in my own personal life, if I take a step back from the internet and just go interact with folks from all walks of life, I find that people are much more civil and they want to be nice to each other. Even if we disagree on things, face to face, folks are a lot more cordial than, say, the internet would make you think. The problem is, I feel like a lot of people get wrapped up in all the hate that gets spewed all over the internet, and then they go out into public still mad about that hate, and everyone's mad about that hate, and then they do stuff like maybe burn flags. There's a lot of divide in our country that doesn't need to be there, because everyone's maybe watching a little bit too much news.
I think a lot of people would be very surprised how much other people are somewhat in their same perspective. Even people that are in, say, a different political party. And I think a lot of people, if they bothered to have genuine conversations with people about more like the root cause, as opposed to how do we solve something that's very surface issue. Because whenever you're talking about the surface issue of things, that's where people get really hot. I notice because they have like their talking points. But when you get like underneath of it, so for instance, I was having a conversation with someone recently about solving crime. If just sending tons of people to jail, right? We're just going to send more people to jail. Well, we already do that. We already have more prisoners than like any other country, right? Even per capita, we have more. And it doesn't matter. Crime is still going up. So if just sending people to jail solved the problem, then the problem would already be solved. Clearly, it's not solving the problem, but one thing we all have in common, even people who want to be like tough on crime, we actually want to solve the crime problem. So if sending people to jail solved the problem, then great. It clearly is not. So it's like, what would the solution to that be? Or is there more of a combo solution? And when people realize that you actually want to talk about the real problem, most people actually become, they come across the table and are willing to have a real conversation. Maybe not everyone, but most people I meet actually do. And it really doesn't matter what political party they're from. Same thing when I talk to people who they think that they hate capitalism. What I'll say is, why do you hate capitalism? When they describe capitalism, it's usually what I call corporatism, meaning the government has been sort of hijacked by corporations. Or in some cases, corporations have been somewhat hijacked by government. But either way, they have a weird relationship that doesn't work out very well for the rest of us. Whatever term you want to throw on it, doesn't matter to me so long as we're on the same page as to what we're talking about.
And that's why it's so important to take the time to understand where the other person's coming from, or even of how, like what they said, if they mean what they said. Because sometimes, like I can even do this, where I say something and maybe you took it one way, but I actually meant something like a little bit different. So by you maybe saying, is this what you meant? Then I have the chance to say, oh no, I didn't exactly mean that. I actually meant this. But you could have been like, oh, screw you, because this is you believe whatever. And you didn't. And then I'm now defensive immediately because you're coming at me because I just relayed what I was trying to say a little bit incorrectly. So giving people the chance to make a verbal mistake, or even just disagree, if that is what it comes to. But just giving people the chance to view something a little bit differently and just toning it down a little bit is worth a lot.